part of this great legacy of change for our country. I wish that Mr. Trump, rather than challenge John Lewis with the Twitter wars, to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus, meet with the Latino Caucus, meet with significant mayors around the country, from Atlanta and Detroit and Chicago, and begin to engage in policy talks as opposed to these private challenges. There are some low-hanging grapes of credibility crisis around the campaign. For example, the winner won, the loser won, the winner lost. That was a crisis, and they said, well, that's about electoral college. Then came the Russian factor. 17 agencies say that the Russians involved in the campaign. Then the comma and the FBI factor. And then the suppression of the black vote. There are layers of crisis here, and it creates a credibility crisis around the campaign. I hope that Mr. Trump will move away from the personal attacks to a real policy discussion.
What do you say to people who criticize what we heard from the congressman that President-elect Donald Trump is not a legitimate president, which actually lines up with what you just said, that the loser won and the winner lost, to say that this is not the way to move forward in a country that has so many divisions, by questioning or commenting on the legitimacy of the president-elect?
Well, if you have a one-person, one-vote democracy, then, of course, the winner is Hillary Clinton. But then you have the Electoral College as a kind of oversight, which most people don't recognize that as being legitimate in this day and time. It's rather archaic oversight. That be done, the Russian factor, which the intelligence community has said is a big factor in the campaign, not the sole determining factor, but then the FBI involvement 10 days before, another factor. Then I think the most significant hacking was done when the day after the election, the New York Times had an editorial that the Republican chairman of North Carolina was celebrating the fact the black vote was down 9%, the white up 21%, because they removed precincts. Yeah. Since 2013, they removed 868 precincts. And so the manipulation of the campaign has left a real credibility crisis.
Well, let me push you to answer the question that Congressman Lewis answered. Citing all of these elements that you have now, do you see Donald Trump as the legitimate president, the president-elect?
Legally, he is the president, but without a moral foundation. It's a very weak foundation, and therefore about 20 Congress people already saying they will not attend. That number is growing. Rather than react to those groups, he should respond to the legitimacy of their pain. He is legally the president, but that does not make it have the moral foundation it needs to be the leader of a one big tent America.
Okay, I want you to listen to what the president and CEO of the NAACP, Cornell Williams Brooks, said yesterday about Donald Trump's comments and how he can bring this country together. Let's watch.
It is a campaign in which many of us felt disrespected. Unless we miss the point. In recent hours, in recent days, we are the president-elect, referred to an icon of the civil rights movement, who came precariously or perilously close to becoming a martyr of the civil rights movement by the name of Reverend and Representative John Lewis. The president-elect said that he was all talk and no action. Disrespected.
Some have called for the president-elect to apologize. Beyond that, how does Donald Trump get to the point where he does what he says he wants to do, which is unite a divided country?
Well, there's the Congressional Black Caucus, 50 of them now, Latino Caucus, Progressive Caucus. Meet with those leaders. But we did a White House conference on violence, causes and cures, on racial disparities in our country, on the impact of poverty, the growth of poverty, and a plan for reconstruction. It is now time for policy discussions. There are too few getting the idea that the first idea would be to cut affordable health care. Yeah. And people are confused. They want affordable health care. They don't want Obamacare. They want an omelet but don't want the eggs. It's irrational. We need leadership that will bring us together on the one big tent. So far, that has not been apparent. And I think that John Lewis is too much of an icon who's paid too much dues. He's been walk, 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 not talk, talk, talk. That's really John Lewis that we all know and love.
Let's talk policy, because you bring up Obamacare, and you wrote in your weekly column in the Chicago Sun-Times that, quote, this opposition to the Affordable Care Act is founded in large part on racial delusions. You cite research that shows that more non-college educated whites gained coverage than college educated whites and minorities combined in all 5 of the Rust Belt states that flipped from Obama in 2012 to Trump in 2016. How do you believe that will impact this conversation, this effort to repeal and replace moving forward?
Well, many of the Trump supporters were voting against Obamacare and didn't know the difference between that and affordable health care. They're now appealing, please don't cut it, because one thing President Obama did, he came into office, we lost 800,000 jobs that month. We're net gain of jobs every month since. 20+ million Americans have health care that never had before. They cannot do without it. Without it, they will die. I mean, South Carolina has a $7 billion budget, turned down $13 billion in affordable health care, and closed rural hospitals. President Barack is on the right track, and those reacting to it on the wrong track, and they're going to end up attacking their own base. And that's unfortunate and unfair.
Finally, before we let you go, Reverend, you were in Chicago for the president's farewell address this week. We don't know yet what the president will do post-White House, but what would you hope to see from President Obama, from Mrs. Obama, after they leave the White House?
First of all, the address of the night was a magnificent address. One, the idea of the family, Mrs. Robinson raising those 2 grandchildren in the White House. I mean, like Moses' mother raised him in the big house. That's a big deal. That's the family idea. Secondly, that in these inner cities, we need a renewed focus on urban crisis. Chicago, there are 9 communities with unemployment above 20%, poverty above 40%, income ranging $9,000 to $15,000 a year. We need a plan for reinvestment, not law and order, but jobs and justice and healthcare and education. In this city, for example, 80,000 vacant homes or abandoned lots. You have 50 public schools that are closed, that have now become eyesores. If in fact, watch this, if you in fact were to remove the lead paint and lead in the water, jobs. If you cut down the weeds that are now growing and get landscapers, jobs. If you demolish those houses that cannot be restored, jobs. And my point is that if we turn our focus, as Dr. King would, from war on war in nuclear development to economic development, we may have more jobs than people. Let's put America back to work and turn to each other, not on each other. The spirit of Dr. King, on this day, he spent that time at Ebenezer Church focused on a war on poverty, how to end the war on poverty at home, in the war in Vietnam. And that is the agenda for today. In the wars abroad,